what SMA is all about. It differs in types. It differs in from person to person, even within the same type. From what I have learned and what have I seen in my own community, the SMAers in the world get to choose between several treatment options. That can be Spinraza, that can be Evrysdi or Risdiplam. There is also Zolgensma. So there's several medications that can be used to hold off the progression.
So like, I think at the age of 4, you get to start walking just as a normal child. So were you able to walk normally, or did you need braces from the beginning?
Realized and trying to make peace with the need of a more serious mobility aid, which was a wheelchair. But that was a very traumatic and tragic experience in my early.
So it seems that your body decided to weaken from your feet up.
Just like many SMAers, I was slowly unable to lift my arms above my head. Virtually, we don't have the treatment options available in Ukraine, and most SMAers, the majority of SMAers, we are just kind of going through life untreated. It's an oral drug. Even though it shows totally different results in every SMAer. For some people, it can be spectacular. For others, it can not show.
The treatment, is this for it to stop their progression, or is it actually to reverse some of it? Or
misconception that is currently existing in many communities is that people are sometimes having a little bit too many hopes for them. I am no longer seeing the situation as something that I need to be in continuous battle 24/7 with.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate something that a doctor had told your mom, and I think it's incredibly fucked up. But a doctor told your mom that she won't turn 18. I recommend having another baby. And I think that's a terrible mentality that probably inflicted a lot of hurtful years for yourself. Hello, welcome to my podcast, to Mics One JoeySooch. I am Joey Sooch, and I'll be giving a mic to Kateryna Smirvona.
Okay, I should definitely stop you here for a little bit. It's
sure.
Kateryna Smirnova, or in short, you can call me just Katya. Maybe it will be easier for you rather than my whole name.
Katya?
Katya, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, Katya.
It's okay.
She is a translator, disability advocate, photographer, and part of the Apple Master Race. She is my first guest all the way from Ukraine. She currently has spinal muscular atrophy type 3. It means her muscles are growing weaker as she ages due to a gene being a genetic error and the SMN gene. Glad to have you today. How are you?
Thanks for having me, first of all, and it's really an honor to be on your podcast. I'm doing great. I mean, it's a day off in Ukraine today. Unexpectedly, okay. Yeah, it's Defenders Day, so we are officially off, and so I am having the best time today in the middle of the week.
Well, I'm glad I'm able to spend the day with you on your day off.
Likewise.
Okay, so I want to talk about, so I mentioned that you have spinal muscular atrophy type 3. What is type 3?
So as we know, there are 4 types currently known of SMA, and type 3 is considered to be one of the mildest form. There are obviously different kind of types that it is divided into. So there can be a strong type 3 or weaker one. So what's great about it, it doesn't really affect the life expectancy, but regardless of that, it's pretty much like a big robber of all our strengths. It's still, our muscles still gradually grow weaker, which means, which stands for the atrophy itself. It's a process that, we have to slowly adjust to, because your life changes as you go, as you age. The things that you were once able to do, you might no longer be doing anymore. So And the biggest problem for every basically type, the primary cause of SMA is the like the culprit, like the biggest culprit, the biggest a-hole in this whole situation is an SMN1 gene that is actually responsible for what we have. So yeah, that's just a little kind of insight into what SMA is all about. It differs in types. It differs in from person to person, even within the same type. You know, from what I have learned and what have I seen in my own community, there are we can be so diverse. Like the SMAers, we can be so different, and each one may have a set of certain abilities and skills that they still have preserved, while the others with the same time may not by the same age. So it's very individual. It's never the same, and so it's kind of like a learning process for many of us. Still, you still learn a lot about all the things that SMA is really. And my case is a very rare ones, where there's not only like the SMN1, it's kind of like a primary cause, like this genetic mutation in this specific gene is kind of the cause for the majority of SMAs. In 95 cases, that's what causes it. But in some super rare ones, like
But did
my
you say only
case,
95 cases?
no, I mean 95%. Excuse me, I meant 95%. Yeah. So in 95%, that's like the majority, right? That where this SMN1 wreaks havoc in our lives. But in rare cases, there may be other genes that will be responsible for the same kind of situation, and that's my story. We are still on the journey of trying to establish what kind of gene has been this rude to me. But it's a long process, and of course I have personally faced a lot of challenges in that way, because obviously we know about all the difficulties with the healthcare and healthcare in Ukraine in particular. So it's not something that is easy to do financially, emotionally, physically, in all kinds of ways. So that's still something that I would have to dig out as I go.
Yeah, so I know that you had to go to Germany to get diagnosed. Did you go to Germany because there were more experts in what you have, or are there better hospitals there?
Yeah, well, since I was diagnosed when I was still for 3.5 years old, and now I'm 33, so you do the math, it was long ago. And at that time, Ukraine was not at all advanced in terms of healthcare services, and especially like there wasn't really a lot of knowledge around SMA as such, or any similar genetic conditions as mine. At that point, actually, not even my parents really knew like what that thing was. There weren't other patients with these conditions. There weren't any organizations, anything. Basically, there was no representation whatsoever.
And then there was no internet, so you couldn't even.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, exactly. And so there were certain professors that were knowledgeable in SMA, and once I had my preliminary diagnosis in place, they would refer my family to. There was like a couple of places mentioned where we can get the things rolling, and one of them was Germany. That was the place where they kind of indicated the specific clinic where we can try ourselves, like to see how things will be working out there. And my parents were the complete champions in this department. They would just not take no for an answer with anything. So we packed our bags and started our life from scratch in Germany. That's where I was admitted to a school it was not just a regular school. It was a school. It was basically like an all-inclusive school, plus it was based on a hospital. So there were, again, for myself as a kid from post-Soviet country, it was something huge, because for the first time ever in my life, I saw all these kids that had disabilities, and I was like, oh my god, like that happens. Like there are all sorts of kids, there are all sorts of abilities, and that was just something spectacular, both for me as a kid and for my parents, who were also people from post-Soviet country, where they never saw something like that. And there I got my confirmation of my diagnosis with German professors. At that point, there were unfortunately no genetic testings still. I mean, it came a little later, but based on the way my condition was progressing, based on the clinical manifestations of it, it was SMA. I mean, it was established, it was bright and clear as a day, that was SMA type 3. And at that point, there was no treatment as we've got now. I mean, universally, unfortunately, it's still not available in Ukraine. We don't have, as you may or may not know, but SMAers in the world get to choose between several treatment options. That can be Spinraza, that can be Evrysdi or Risdiplam. There is also Zolgensma. So there's several medications that can be used to hold off the progression of the disease, and in some cases it may help regain certain abilities, but that's also highly individual. Like it's not something set in stone. And yeah, so back in Germany, there was no such thing as treatment yet. It was only like physiotherapy. There was just supplements and stuff like that. And at that point, it was just things were just going really great for me because it was helping a lot, and I was like in my element, for the first time, because I really felt included. I felt, even though at that point my disability wasn't really as advanced as it is now, I still preserved my ability to walk. I barely had any problems with that, just some supportive leg braces, and that's about it. But it was really something huge for me as a kid from my country, seeing the other side of life, while being disabled, like being a disabled kid in such a accepting and supportive environment.
So let's talk about you growing up. So I'm assuming that you were born a normal baby physically, and then just over time you just slowly degenerated. But like, I know that you had leg braces and that allowed you to walk. Like, what time period are we talking from that you could walk with braces? Because I know that the older you got, the bigger the braces were, and then at one point you just, I guess, couldn't support yourself. So let's talk about the beginning. So I think at the age of 4, you get to start walking just as a normal child. So were you able to walk normally, or did you need braces from the beginning?
No, actually, at the age of 4, even until the age of 5, I was able to walk independently without even leg braces. The leg braces came in Germany to support me a little bit and to prevent falls, to prevent other difficulties. Like basically the symptoms were manifesting themselves in my weakness to walk up and down the stairs, to get up from the seated position, from like the floor. Obviously, my big companions were my almost constant falls, and that was just something that I kept hating a lot, because like my knees would be just like all busted, and they were like continuously in some band-aids and stuff like that. So yeah, and when we were already in Germany, since there were all this variety of solutions of how to to help me out, so there was just little, like the small leg braces that were not even made out of hard plastic. They were just they look a little bit like I don't know, like shoes in a way, just harder shoes. The inserts, and they would just be like a magical magical thing for me, like total life changer. They would, support my ankles. That would really help me, walk again up the stairs with less, problems that I experienced. So for a while it was fine. They were working out, but when I got back to Ukraine, as I was like around 7 year old, I think 8, things were starting to finally catch up with me, gaining momentum. SMA decided to be like coming back full force, reminding me that it's still there. It hasn't vanished. Like nothing really changed. It was just like a breather in a way. So, and basically from my elementary to my teenagehood, things were getting, getting faster and faster. And they were not really looking bright at my end. And my braces were changing to hard plastic. They were like already, growing larger, and I was growing weaker. I needed, like, I was still able to walk technically till like I was 20 years old, even in my early 20s, but that I really needed like either someone holding me by the hands, or like I needed the walker, which was also not the best thing ever, because like the walkers in this type of condition, they can be also just as dangerous, because you can fall any moment. That happens a lot.
Mhm.
So I think by the age of 20, I was kind of starting to realize and trying to make peace with the need of a more serious mobility aid, which was a wheelchair. But that like was a very traumatic and tragic experience in my early
So it seems that your body decided to weaken from your feet up. That's fair to say?
yeah, exactly. Obviously, like it was also affecting my my hands and arms. Like I couldn't, just like many estimators, I was slowly unable to lift my arms above my head. They were also growing weaker, so like my extremities were failing me big time in that department.
I'm just curious, how did your parents know that you had SMA from birth? If you said that you were born relatively normal.
Basically, they like in the first years there were literally no manifestations whatsoever. Like I hit every milestone the baby has to hit, as a toddler, as a baby, as a little kid. So all the things were just like on the dot. No doubt, like I've been checked by a number of neurologists. Everything was fine, but then my mom noticed that things are just not really looking all right. There was like this weird walk that I started developing. Then there were those frequent falls that I mentioned earlier. So all these things that were not exactly fine or okay. And my mom was obviously alarmed by this. So she started knocking every door, every neurologist that she could possibly get hold of. And what they would tell her, that she was just a crazy mom with all these things in her head. Like this, like
It's
don't
awful.
even. Yeah, it was like an ableism, in its like in biggest form, just in medical field. She obviously didn't stop her, no matter what they were saying. They were just like, oh, it can be just like this is a thing that could be corrected with like shoe inserts. I mean, wow,
Hmm.
really, inserts? There were a number of doctors like that, until we finally got to a huge neurology institute in Ukraine, like the biggest. Basically, there were no like bigger authority above this, this healthcare institution. So that's where like they started digging into it, and initially they thought that it's a muscular dystrophy, but then they were also like on a fence about it. They were doing lots of different testing, physical tests, but all kinds of stuff that was, available at the time. And that's where they basically confirmed that, okay, based on the whole picture, based on how things are, from physical standpoint and from clinical standpoint, that's that this is it. Like, this is SMA. So yeah, I'm really thankful to my parents, because a lot of people, and that's a big reality for many SMAers even in Ukraine, that some of them they still haven't had their like genetic testing done. Because either it was something inaccessible for them, from a variety of reasons. It can be from a financial standpoint or for any other. So a lot of people are either undiagnosed, or they continue, their journeys right now, or there are cases like mine, which was a big eye-opener for me, to be honest, when I contacted and got to learn a few people, also not only in Ukraine but overseas, who have the same problem, from genetic standpoint. Like, their SMA is confirmed clinically. It's just like classical SMA, but genetically their test is different. Like, it can neither deny it nor confirm it. So that's a thing that was something really big and interesting to me, because that's not something that is really talked about much in our community. And sometimes you do feel like if you don't have your genetic testing, you are as if you are like an imposter, like, and which I faced a couple of times with some of the kind of authorities in Ukrainian SMA community, where they would question my entire diagnosis, regardless of the fact that I have all my documentation from my childhood and later in life, and from Germany and everything else. So that's the thing that needs to be sometimes fought for, and that's why it's important to advocate for yourself and for your own diagnoses.
Yeah, kudos to your parents for not giving up. I can't imagine how difficult it was 20 years ago to like try to find out who you are, especially in Ukraine. Like, I want to talk about how was the healthcare for you, like, let's say 20 years, and how is it now? Is it still poor that you still have to travel, or is it better for you now?
What we have currently is a pretty tough situation, to be honest, regardless of the fact that we have at least, Spinraza for so many years already. I mean, it has been around since 2016. And yet in Ukraine, we only have it kind of legalized and accepted, but it's still not even provided, not even to the babies. So in the Russian Federation, as far as I'm concerned, they provide the treatment for kids until they reach the age of 18. And then you're kind of on your own. And for Ukraine, unfortunately, at this point, it's still only, there were a couple of programs where they would be giving some kind of individual, patient access to Risdiplam, but that was like a limited access program. That's about it. And so virtually, we don't have the treatment options available in Ukraine. And most SMAers, the majority of SMAers, we are just kind of going through life untreated. What we try to do is preserve our strength by having physical, therapy, but that's also something that is not really provided charge-free by the state. So it's something that you have to continuously pay out of the pocket. And yeah, that's what you do. You do what you have to do. Most of us are working regardless of how advanced things are, even if it's like making things harder for us, because with this type of condition, working multiple jobs and to preserve your standing, and plus to be able to pay for your treatment. I mean, like, for physical therapy, let's just say, for like massages or any sort of thing that would potentially help at least a little bit, preserve your strength. So all these things you have to do on your own, and that's the current state of affairs here, which is not too bright, but we are really, as a community, we are really pushing for and advocating for at least making the, several medications available to at least kids at this point, because there's also a big problem here where a lot of communities and a lot of organizations, they are positioning themselves as a children's organizations, so they're advocating mostly for the kids, and so adult SMEs, they are kind of gently pushed under the rug as if we don't exist, but we very much do. And so yeah, that's how things are. I know it doesn't sound too great, but still here, still kicking whatever we can do, with what we have.
Yeah, but when you keep mentioning treatment, do you mean clinical trials going on, or are there actual treatments too, like with proven results, or is it more of a it may help you kind of treatment?
I personally, again, as long as I will be, approved for it, and just hypothetically speaking, if there is a treatment in Ukraine finally available, probably gravitate towards risdiplam or Evrysdi, because it's an oral drug. Even though it shows totally different results in every SMA. For some people, it can be spectacular. For others, it can not show that much, that much performance improvement as people hoped. So it's like highly individual for every person. But this is something that I would definitely be gravitating towards, because with Spinraza, where it is administered, through a spine, kind of lumbar puncture, and because I have a pretty curved spine, that would be problematic. I haven't had a spine fusion surgery, so I assume that would send in a way to getting Spinrazas. But obviously, if there is a risdiplam, I would be, doing my best to get in line and trying, to get that treatment.
With the treatment, is this for it to stop your progression, or is it actually to reverse some of it, or in between, or just one or the other?
The problem with like the whole, treatment options, and a big misconception that is currently existing in many communities, is that, people are sometimes having a little bit too many hopes for them, as if, saying that, let's just say about the Zolgensma, which is a drug administered to babies up until a certain age, and a lot of people are almost interpreted it as if it's like a miracle pill that will somehow magically change things forever, and even if there were certain changes already, and if SMA has already affected their kids and their muscles and their overall being a lot, then suddenly it would just reverse these things completely, and they would just suddenly lose SMA for good. But that's not exactly true. In the same way, for when it comes to Spinraza and risdiplam, mainly, and that's what has been stressed a lot by manufacturers, by advocates, that it is something that is aimed to hold off the progression. This is what its aim, the main thing about it, is that it helps you not progress any further. Some, for again, as I mentioned, for some people, they experience a lot of gains as they begin a certain treatment. It can be Spinraza, it can be Evrysdi, and it can, again, it may vary hugely, because some people experience these gains on Spinraza, then they switch to Evrysdi, something goes wrong, and they switch back. So it's something that everyone has to decide for themselves, see how things are going, and then kind of going from there, based on how they feel, based on what gains they have, what what kind of side effects they experience, because there were quite a lot in both cases, which just kind of comes with the territory in a way, no matter how. I mean, it's a patent drugs, so it's kind of doomed to have side effects. That's just not something like magical, we are not in Cinderella movie, unfortunately, where things like, again, even in Cinderella movie, like things go back, to a certain point. But yeah, that's what's important to keep in mind, that at this point there's no like magic pill that suddenly makes you SMA free overnight. That's something that a lot of people are probably having a hard time coming to terms with, and I totally get where they're coming from and why it's
how do you
happening.
feel about it?
You mean like the fact that it's just not a magic pill?
Yeah, like, do you think you'll be able to get the drug in your lifetime?
I still I think I still have a little chunk of life left. I'm currently 33 years old, so impossible is
that's
nothing.
old
Who
at this
knows?
that's old at this point. I'm just turning 30 and
Oh my, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
falling apart.
that's something that whenever you hit 30, it feels like the actual wall of bricks, then slowly but
Exactly.
surely you kind of you kind of come to accept it. And then it doesn't feel that bad. I do sometimes feel very weird about like seeing my childhood friends being like this aunts and uncles, and I'm like, when did they turn into
It's
this
so
like
weird. It's
grown ass people, right?
we're the adults now.
Exactly. And that's it. Like, I don't know, I internally I don't really feel 30 something at all. So that's something, I don't know, maybe it's still some sort of I don't know, psychological defense mechanism, for me accepting me being 30 in my 30s. But it's getting better, honestly. From this point,
I hope so.
So yeah, going back to your question, I do really hope that maybe at some point I will be able to either travel overseas and do that, because I'm really the kind of person, I'm really open in terms of the world. I would really want to explore it more, which sounds so ridiculous given the fact that we are in COVID pandemic. But still there's hope. And I personally, I don't know, I think I've already reached that point in my life where I no longer like fight, in a fight or flight mode with SMA. Like there was this kind of period in my life along with my parents, and I think like that was also a big like a psychological problem for them as well, where we were in a constant fight mode, like a constant fight mode. We were hoping that our like doing PTs 24/7, having massages, having like all the supplements, having a bunch of like injections, all the things that you can possibly think of, at that point, that this will somehow, help, I don't know, stop it. But then I think, and I can only speak for myself at this point, because I don't really think that my father has fully accepted it yet. And
Really, after 33 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's pretty much something that everyone deals on their own, and sometimes maybe it takes some people a lifetime to come to terms with that. But for me, I think this is something I'm really happy and proud of, is that I am no longer seeing the situation as something that I need to be in continuous battle 24/7 with. Yeah, obviously, as an SMAer, I have very shitty days, and that's just a part of it. That comes with the territory. That's something you grow to accept and learn to live your life with. Yeah, I kind of try to treat it as just an integral part of the process, and trying to focus on what I have at this point, what makes me me, what I can still do, even if I'm slowly losing things that I was able to do and what I love to do, which currently includes photography, because my hands have unfortunately grown a lot weaker than they were, at least let's just say like 5 years ago or so, where I was actively doing photography. I was even back in university, I was doing photo shoots with my friend who was like my everything, like my physical assistant. She was like my business assistant, everything else, everything you can think of. And I was actively, engaged in photography. And now I do feel a certain sense of grief and loss, because I feel that obviously it's a lot harder for me now, and I do kind of try to find ways around it. But it's I think it's just like it's a learning process continuously. You just you have to let go of things and maybe kind of refocus your whole kind of attention to something else, and you just in a constant search of things that bring you joy and peace. So
Yeah, let's talk about photography, because I know that you have a project that you did called Dutch People Doesn't Exist. So would you like to explain that project to everybody?
yeah, sure. So that project was something that was implemented when it was still a dawn of the whole inclusion process in Ukraine. It was still back in 2011, where, and even though it may seem not so long ago, but Ukraine has been making baby steps towards inclusive society, where disability is finally seen and treated differently, unlike what it was, the way it was shown and portrayed before. So at that point, I mean, fast forward to 2011, it was like kind of very interesting how it all started off, really. I was just having a nice day. I was going out somewhere. I think like I've met a friend in a cafe or something, and we were chatting about it, and I was obviously in my wheelchair. And I was really like in a very shy, humble way. I was approached by this photographer who was kind of giving me a glimpse into the story of his daughter, who at the time just underwent several surgeries, almost life-changing surgeries after her horrendous car accident, where she has broken almost anything that she could have broken in her legs. So her like knees were smashed. She couldn't walk. It was she still kind of has a lot of issues with that. So at that point, for the first time in his life, that photographer faced the realities of Ukrainian infrastructure, which was not tailored to the needs of disabled people or people with mobility needs. Not even the slightest. There were no ramps, there were no special arrangements. It was barely visible, or it would be rather like an exclusion rather than something that you would see normally everywhere. So because he was going through such a traumatic experience with his daughter, for the first time he actually saw how things are, how not easy it is for for people like us. And so he suggested that I participate in a project with him, which was aimed to show that disabled people are very much there, even though the whole inaccessibility of of the majority of towns and cities in Ukraine, they make it look as if we are not there at all. Because a lot of people, which is like the saddest truth, and it's something that still, I'm pretty sure that it's still pretty much alive, even though it's not as bad as it was. But a lot of people are still caged in their own apartments. A lot of people, because of their inaccessible buildings, old buildings, like Soviet era buildings, they are unable to get outside unless they have actual physical help to do that, to navigate it. And so this project was aimed to show how that we do have major, and by major I mean major issues in our infrastructure department. Like, this is something that has to be changed ASAP, because otherwise we would be stuck in that, reality forever. So like there was,
are you talking about like
yeah,
Kiev, like the capital of Ukraine? Or are you like where were
yeah,
you?
yeah, I'm talking about Kiev because as maybe weird as it is, given the fact that it's a actual capital of Ukraine, but at that point it was just it was in a very bad shape, accessibility wise. We are finally, I mean, now it's, in 2021 we are finally getting there, and that's something that makes my, even though I know how pathetic it is, like we should not be applauding every single time a ramp, I don't know, is installed after like 35 years, of not being there.
No, but
But
it's
we
huge
still
for the
applaud.
disability community.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So this project we basically highlighted the kind of, in different parts of the city, we highlighted where things could have been different, and there was like this very amazing, I think, kind of thing that photographer also came up with, is that there was this mannequin which was painted white, in solid white, and it was seated in a wheelchair which was painted gold, so that it kind of, like, it was really hard not to notice it, let's just say. And obviously it was like a, given this like a bomb explosion effect for the majority of people that were passing by, because they never saw something like that. And that was, again, like in itself, it was a metaphor that, hey, they are there. The people that you try to pretend that they don't exist, they are here. They need change. And so I was like a second photographer in this project. I was taking the shots of the mannequin while the lead photographer was taking the shots of me taking, so it's like a whole inception thing. And it was pretty unbelievable, like the whole experience felt very surreal, because we were like doing masks from my face, like the plaster mask. There was like all the technicalities that went into the process, but the main thing, like, and what was really important, is that it did create a huge informational explosion in media. Finally the Ukrainian media started talking about it, like, and then it kind of created a synergy where from then it just started growing and gaining momentum every single year. So there were more publications, there were more projects that would be focusing on this type of matters, that would be finally talking about the representation of disabled people in a more, let's just say, adequate way, not just like continuous tragedies on wheels, or not no wheels, just like tragedies constantly. So the things were, obviously we are not like trying to say that, oh, our project was the first one to do all these things. I'm pretty sure there were a bunch of others, but it was something really incredible, and I'm really honored that I was a part of it at that time. It did give me a huge outlet for my creativity as well. So
Yeah,
that was big.
I wish you were still able to continue to do photography, because you have really good photography skills.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that, I mean, if I were a technical engineer, or I don't know, like the person who would just like redesign things, I would so redesign the cameras for disabled people with like low mobility, like hand skills, strength. If there was like the shutter, button would be less hard to navigate. And I do know that a lot of things like that are pretty possible overseas. There are even different societies, photography societies for disabled photographers overseas, where they have a bunch of modifications to the cameras, where the person with like let's just say tetraplegics, who or other people with like genetic diseases, or anything that basically affects their muscles and their physical abilities. So they are finding ways around that, so like making the devices serves them, rather than trying to tame them with their like weakening arms and hands and fingers. So that would be something. But I do plan on still still doing whatever it takes for that shot, because I do love photography dearly, and that's something that has been a part of my life for so long. So
yeah, like cameras are incredibly heavy, and like even like when I go out with my friend, sometimes I just won't take the camera out because it's so like hassle to take out. Like I have my phone here, and it's like it is amazing pictures that like sometimes you can't even tell the difference between the two. From like a $2,000 camera to an iPhone. I mean, an iPhone costs 1,000, so it's kind of a lot, but sometimes you can't tell them apart.
Yeah, and that's something that I actually have like high hopes for, is that over time maybe iPhones will reach the level of like Canon lenses. That would just make my entire life so much easier, because that's something that really helps a lot. Even like with my gears that I'm using for actual DSLR photography, there are several lenses and they're super heavy, and every single time like it's a legit workout whenever I'm like out and about with my camera, which I love. I mean, I totally love it, but don't get me wrong, but it's a process. It's a process for sure.
Oh no, it definitely is. It's your, but the bar for iPhone cameras are just phone cameras are incredible. And I think most people that are growing up in today's world would never buy a DSLR again, because it's just there's less and less need for it. The only need I have for the bigger camera is like you can kind of tell a professional camera from like an iPhone camera, especially like with a nice blur in the background. Like the iPhone
bokeh. Oh, bokeh! What I would do for those bokehs.
Yeah, I mean, it looks amazing. It's like that little touch to help. And then, but like most people, like an iPhone camera is just fine. They don't need any of the extra equipment. Like lenses cost a lot of money, like $1,000 for a lens. That's a lot of money for anyone to spend for. Not everyone, like an iPhone, like you can take pictures in an instant. Like no one wants to bring a camera on a trip because it's so heavy.
Exactly. And plus, like it's always, it's always problematic to travel with this type of gear. And again, I really hope that iPhones just progress. I don't know, to reach the stars in terms of their technical features. That would be really, really great. Then I would be able to sell them all my all my cameras, all my lenses, and just like invest in like the latest iPhone and feel content with it as a photographer. But
yeah, I mean, I think in 5 years they're gonna be like no use for these bigger cameras anymore, except for like professionals. But for the everyday person, like even I might consider selling my camera in 5 years and stick with my phone.
Yeah, especially these days with the such rapid advancement in terms of like YouTube technologies and YouTubers. There are newer and newer cameras that are being developed that are just like tiny, and they have excellent quality and excellent features.
It's weird because like this phone you can get for $1,000 and it comes with like a phone and like some browser and stuff.
But you're like a fancy guy though. You have shared earlier that you have like the latest iPhone. So that's like a big thing.
Oh yeah, but like before I had this one, I had the iPhone 10, which was 4 years ago. So I actually it just like when I look back at my YouTube video, I can tell my old camera wasn't cutting it anymore. So that's why I invested into it anyway. But like I don't buy equipment. I did bought a lot this last year just to invest in my like brand and such. But otherwise, I don't really like invest. But when I bought my camera, it was like a huge deal for me because I don't buy stuff for myself, especially expensive stuff. So it was a big deal. But like, have you ever considered like maybe in the medical, like coming to the United States for like the treatment or to live here?
To be honest, that's one of my kind of not just in terms of treatment or in terms of for some other reasons. It's something, it's just like on my bucket list. I really want to travel to the US, and I really want to. I have so many friends over there, and I don't know, maybe it's like some irony of mine, but I do have like a lot of people that I really hold dear and close to my heart. They just happen to be overseas. It's just, I don't know, it's just an irony of my
That's
life.
the
It's just something
worst.
that yeah, it just haunts me like my entire life. I do really want to do that, and I really hope it, I really hope it works out. Hopefully this whole pandemic will be getting somehow under control, which judging from Ukrainian realities, is not really getting under control. But I'm still hopeful for that, and I would really love to travel, and getting treatment would be just a cherry on top, like a big fat cherry.
But isn't it tricky to get treatment because don't you need, like you mentioned the pill, but like you can't, you can't come here for like a month and then leave again. Like, you kind of have to like stay
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
So
of
so
course.
medicine would not even be possible then, or
Yeah, I mean that would kind of imply whole immigration process, which I'm not really opposed to be honest. But let's see how things will be, progressing further down the line, like in my my private life, in my professionally, because if there is like some great chance to relocate based on the work that I'm doing, that would be also a great thing. And like, it's really great to be a translator and copywriter because you can pretty much work from anywhere. That's something that I was really grateful to have, especially during this pandemic where so many people have been unfortunate to have lost jobs and struggle so much. I get to be in my safe little bubble and to doing things that I love doing, that I'm passionate about, in the safety of my homes, in my PGs.
yeah, I mentioned like in the beginning that you're a translator and stuff, but like who is your audience? Like, is advocacy hard in the Ukraine that you kind of expanded your horizon to the United States, or are you like all over Europe? Like how
You mean like my based on my Instagram account and
like your
socials?
advocacy, because like if you go on like your Instagram, you always talk in English and then you talk in Ukrainian. Like where is most of your audience from?
That is something very tricky actually, and that's something that I was struggling with a lot because I've been in a way torn between two audiences. Now I'm really trying to cover kind of both Ukrainian and English speaking world, let's just say. So it includes US, it includes UK, other places that kind of cover. But right now, primarily, like my biggest audiences are Ukrainian and the one in the US. So I kind of try to bounce back and forth between them, and that kind of forced me to. Earlier, I used to do my posts or my stories in English, which I know might sound very weird for a Ukrainian native, but because of my, due to my line of work and due to my, my personal things and how passionate I am, like with the whole English thing overall, I was somehow, posting a lot, primarily and really a lot in English. And now I realize that it's pretty like it's a bad move on my part as
Oh,
Ukrainian to
really?
discriminate. Yeah, because I really think that just like in Ukraine, it's not something universal that every single person is, having enough English skills, to be able to get this type of content.
Most schools in Europe teach both your native language and English, so I thought like most millennials would speak both bilingually.
I mean, yeah, obviously they do. Right now, it's like getting more and more popularity and gaining recognition all over the place. But it's still, it's still not as widespread as, let's just say, like let's take India for instance, where they start as early as like in their preschools or elementary, where they kind of nurture native speakers, English native speakers, even if they have like their own language at the start, or like they use kind of local languages in their household. So in Ukraine, unfortunately, that's not the case. Obviously, there are a lot of people that are already, sending their kids abroad, where they are getting their like masters, bachelors, or they are just like kind of continuing their education in their lives overseas. So that's not a problem, but that's not like a majority, and that's why I kind of cut off a lot from my own Ukrainians, which is like a little discriminating, I think. And so I mean, it's a hard thing to do, doing like this on kind of trying to cover both audiences. It does take a lot of time, and especially since I'm doing translation and copywriting professionally, and that's something that I'm already doing 24/7. So there's this like additional work where I have to when I'm trying to translate like my posts either from English into Ukrainian or vice versa. So, but I'm determined. I'm determined to do that because I do realize that it's something that needs to be done, and I have also seen that it has been getting a lot of response, like positive response from Ukrainian community, from SMA community, from like disabled community. So that's something, and obviously I have been advocating for quite some time in Ukraine for a while, and as a part of organizations, just as individual activist. But as far as social media goes, that was kind of like a failure on my part with the whole English thing. But now I'm trying to do better and try to improve.
So since you speak Ukrainian fluently,
yeah.
So I went to Ukrainian school, and I want to say a poem, and I have no idea what it means or anything, but I was forced to remember it for like a test. So maybe what it is. I didn't know one word means star. Okay, so here it just
Zirka.
Actually, but I'm gonna say I think I did know like 2 lines of it, and then you can just tell me if you like know what.
I really hope that it would not make me feel embarrassed that I suddenly don't remember it or don't know who that is. But we have Google around, so
I really have no idea. She made me memorize it, so I'm assuming you might know of it, but it goes Sidok Vishnevi Kolokasi.
If something, you just cut it out so that I don't feel too embarrassed, okay?
Yeah, so it says Sidok Vishnevi Kolokasi Kushina Vishnami.
Над вишнями гудуть. Yeah, that's Taras Shevchenko, who is our greatest poet of all times. Even though there are so many others, and there are so many others that I love and cherish, but that's something that that's pretty amazing. You were almost fluent, almost. Садок вишневий біля хати, кущі над вишнями гудуть. So cool.
Yeah, but the guy that you mentioned, Sheikh Nabi, we have a street named after him actually in New York City.
Yeah. You mean in New York City?
Yeah, we have a street named after him.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yes, I guess he's a huge deal that he needs his own street.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So what does the poem mean? Is it a poem or is it like a song?
Yeah, that was like a very popular, popular poem in terms of like popular, as it's being a part of every curriculum out there, in Ukraine. So that's like a big thing, kind of a staple, really. So that's pretty fantastic that you've not only got in touch with Ukrainian culture so much as a part of your, whole education, which is great.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's cool to have it, but at the same time, like, almost like don't care because I had to learn it because I had to pass my class. So, but yeah, but I do know how to read the letters and stuff. So I had to learn like everything, and I also had to learn Spanish on top of that. So it was like one of the skills that like I'll never think I use again till like today. And
Yeah, see, like there's always the first time for everything. You never know. Like you
yeah,
never knew that you would have Ukrainian guest all the way from Kiev suddenly.
yeah. I didn't plan it that you were Ukrainian. I had to talk to you. Like I was here for your other story, but I was like, oh, maybe this person like knows all of this, and maybe they can help me out.
Yeah, that just, sometimes it just happens like that. You never know where your like language skills suddenly strike. I had the same situation with like my French classes, that I have no idea, like not even the slightest idea why I picked that up in university. Like that was just kind of like extra. I could have chosen between Spanish and French, but for some reason I just went for French, and I hated every second of it. Not like no disrespect to French people or French speaking people. It was just not my thing. And we had like our teacher, she wasn't just all that great. So as it always, as it normally happens when you're not really getting like inspired by the professor that is kind of motivating you and giving you this like sense of the language. So I hated ever since.
We're
So
American. Well, Americans are lame because we don't really have to know two languages. We did learn English
yeah,
and like we're set for life.
but isn't it like with the Spanish, that Spanish is also like a part of the educational process for the most part, or
No,
it's
yeah,
just
we do
voluntary?
definitely learn Spanish, but we're not reliant on it to like know like outside on the streets.
Yeah.
So like you can, if you speak English, you can get through life with no problems. But I feel like if you live
Mhm.
anywhere outside the United States, you need to know English and then whatever your main language is to navigate.
But that's kind of, yeah, that sort of make sense. If you are in the English speaking country, that would be a little tricky of going there and not being able to do that. It's like with the I still I'm so amazed at my mom, where she with the whole kind of relocating to Germany thing that I mentioned before. It still makes me like, it leaves me in awe that she was able to start life from scratch like this without any knowledge of German language whatsoever. Like she didn't know a thing about it, but she just started. There's sometimes like you have to learn as you go, and you just do it somehow. I don't know, but that's
Uh,
something really incredible
yeah, that's crazy.
to
I
me.
don't think I could do that, honestly.
Yeah, I think me neither, because especially like when when this whole thing happened and when we moved, she was in her early 30s. I think she was just turning 30. And when I just turned 30, I was like, how is that
You hit
even
a brick
possible? Like,
wall.
yeah, I was like, how is that even possible that you just had all this courage? And my mom, basically, we went to Germany with my mom together, and my dad went to the United States to work and to help provide it, everything. So we were basically on our own, just me and her. And she was just so young, and it's just something that really strikes me as completely out of this world, that she had done all of it, and just with having this like giant purpose in front of her, of like getting me treatment, getting me diagnosed, no matter what. No, not even not taking any no's for an answer, or any even if there were some sort of like roadblocks on the way, she would just freaking smash them and just
Yeah, it's a
continue
crazy.
going.
It's a crazy she was able to do it. Like now, it's more comforting with the internet. Like you don't have to learn a language anymore. You can just use your phone to translate for you.
Yeah, and just let show.
Yeah, like you don't. Like you're
90
just.
day fiance, like where they like this international couples where they don't even know each other, but or don't speak any language that they would be just having in common. They would just like use Google Translate. That
Yeah,
really is amazing.
yeah. I was thinking of doing a podcast maybe like that one day, but I don't know. It's just a lot of work
Yeah.
or like to do for an hour, but we'll see what happens. So
Yeah, for sure.
yes, I want to say you have an article called Just Bloom. You say,
Yeah.
and I really liked it. You have like a really great with words and describing things. And I love the
Thank you.
quote, and you throw bloom through the goddamn insecurities and fears and whisper darkly into your ear that you were never good enough or worthy or loved or capable. You weren't always like it. What made you go from life sucks to taking life by the reins and killing it in the advocacy world?
I actually have to say that it was a very painful process. It wasn't really quick by any stretch of imagination. That was something that I had to learn the hard way and learn slow. Um, there was, and I think like this is where actually writing has been also my kind of helping hand throughout of it is because like it was an outlet for all my my anger and my frustrations with myself, with my failing body, with the things that it was no longer able to do. But then, as things were, kind of progressing, and I think like it also a huge thing that played a major role here is that I was finally seeing a lot of um, representation of disabled people that I was, getting in touch with. And that not, I think like it never really happens that either your friends or your family are able to help you in this process, because it's just something that you have to go with yourself. Like you have to grow on your own terms, in your own time. Nobody will just sit you down and tell you like, hey, like you're fine. Being disabled doesn't mean that you are lacking in any way, or that you are unworthy, or that you are like a burden on every single person that you have in your life. So it's something that you have to to learn yourself as you go. So I think with every person that I met, with every disabled person that I interacted with all the with the slow steps, even in advocacy, because and I have openly shared that, and it's kind of both a little embarrassing and a little shameful thing to say, but for the longest time I was experiencing a lot of internalized ableism. I was really trying not to think of myself as disabled individual at all. Like there was just a thing that I really wanted to have nothing to do with. Like disability, it's not my thing. It's not something like disabled people. Please just stay away. It's not me. It's not who I am. Which was, it's incredibly ironic, and there's so much hypocrisy in this because you're freaking disabled. Like accept it. But I really hated the very thought of it. And so I think, slowly, as like there was something like I don't think like I really hoped and really wished that there was some sort of secret switch in the brain that would just like suddenly go on and off, where from like self-hatred and like all this loathing that you experience after your diagnosis or after your body starts to decline a lot, like if there was this switch where you can just turn it off or on and just see things differently, but it doesn't happen like that. So with advocacy as well, like it took me a long time to finally get there and actually realize that, hey, I do feel this internal passion for doing this. It's something that it really helps me, not only like if at least there was at least one person that is in kind of experiencing similar journey and going through a similar hardships as in terms of personal acceptance. Like if I will be able to reach out to them, and if like my words, whatever I'm putting out there, if it helps, then this is the thing that would make it all worth it. So for me, I think with like all this, a lot of processing, a lot of mental work on myself, a lot of unlearning the concepts that I was unfortunately, listening to as I was, growing up, because there was zero representation of disabled people in Ukraine as much as it is now. There was no, there were nobody to look up to. As you can, these days, there's this huge world, even of social media. You can be like in a, I don't know, somewhere in on this globe in some little town, and you have access to this community that has your back. And I don't know if it's safe to say for like every country, or I don't know, universally, but I do feel that there's so much support. Or maybe I was just lucky to interact with so many people that are so supportive and so open-minded. But it does really help to change things, and internally and mentally you do grow. You do finally see things in a different light, from a different perspective. And that's why I think my blog posts, like things like that, they're kind of wrapped in more poetic form in a way, because that's where I started from. As in when I was young, I would just solely write poetry and engage myself with this type of activity. And I was really hoping that I would end up either journalist or at least something along the lines of writing. So now I kind of utilize both. I utilize my writing skills and kind of directing it more towards socially important causes, not just what I did before.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate something that a doctor had told your mom, and I think it's incredibly fucked up. But a doctor told your mom that she won't turn 18. I recommend having another baby. And I think that's a terrible mentality that probably inflicted a lot of hurtful years for yourself. Just being insecure and stuff. Like the doctors weren't even rooting for you. And
mhm.
and then like now you're just like you spent many years just trying to find who you are and your confidence. And then now I guess you were in a much different environment that you were able to like grow and find yourself and become confident and become like a blogger, like on your social media, you're able to showcase who you are. Like you're just your full self. Like you have a great way with words of describing things. And it's just like really cool that I was able to meet you, and like that you're both advocating in English and Ukrainian, because if you were talking Ukrainian, I wouldn't have never even tried to contact you because
Хоча може трошки. I mean, it's a little bit, just a little bit. Maybe it would work.
Yeah, but it's just like great to like meet you and like from a whole different country. Like it's cool that I can talk to you like this, and it's like we're in the same room.
Exactly, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, to speak, and actually having a blast, discussing all things disability and not and beyond, because I think we did cover quite a few bases over here.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the end of the day, we're still human, and we're both in the same place that we both accepted our disability and our, I guess, doom that it will kill us at one point, but we have grace that we just accepted us, and like, what can we do with it at this point?
Exactly. I think like that's the only thing that we can actually turn our like if we have our darkest monsters, it's maybe a good thing to, and if we know that there's no way of escaping those monsters, that they will be there, that we might as well befriend them, turn them to like in our allies and make them advocate.
Exactly.
So
we have very unique experiences that you can't experience. No, you can't experience it other from a regular circumstances. It has to be extreme and really hard moments to get to this point. So, but before I take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to say, promote, brag?
Well, I think at this point, I would really love to hope and think that with every day that comes, that we will be seeing more and more changes that we so desperately need in our societies, and not just disability wise, but overall, like every person. I really would love to see that we, as humans, are finally celebrated as unique beings. However different we may seem to others, our differences is what actually makes us stand out and what makes us unique. So let's freaking celebrate it every single day as much as we can, because we don't have that much time on this planet.
No, exactly. But also having the access to these opportunities is helpful too, because a lot of these disability people don't even have the access to have the opportunity. So like your work and my work is helping the future generation, so we can slowly build up the disability community so they can have more access to things and live a more productive life than we are, because we have to push hard
Absolutely.
just to
Amen to that.
just to have the same rights as the regular person in a way. So we're fighting the good fight that won't end when we pass away, unfortunately. But I think we're making a lot of great progress just in the last 10 years alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really hope that the next generation will reap the benefits of the totally different, like maybe they would not even have to
I hope so.
continue the fight that we are doing right now.
Yeah, I hope so. They better, we're busting our ass here.
Exactly. Like we're doing things 24/7 over here. So it better pay off.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Katya, right?
Yeah, right. Thank you so much, Joe,
Thank you, Katya.
offering.
Yeah, and thank you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.